Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Defion Productions podcast. I am your host, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin, Don. This is the only live stream Bitcoin and crypto podcast in the Western New York area. We are going to start with the charts, and we got a couple stories that we're going to cover going on in the Bitcoin and crypto world, as well as the finance and overall macro world that we're going to talk about today. But we will start with the charts and the Bitcoin price and the crypto market prices. We're having a little bit of a downtrend today. Looks like in the last 24 hours, down almost 2% on Bitcoin, sitting at about a little bit over 103,000 currently, current market cap of 2,047 billion. Ethereum also seeing about a 2% drop, sitting at 2,577 per coin, $311 billion market cap. Going a little bit down the line, we can see that XRP is also suffering the same, down almost 3% at $2.16. Solana down a little bit more at 4%, 149.84. And then we can go back down to everybody's favorite shitcoin, and the pie is still sitting at about 62 cents. Total market cap of crypto is only down, which is weird, with the top coins down between 2 and 4%. There must be some rotation into some of the lower cap coins because it's only down 0.65% total market cap, sitting at 3.38 trillion. And the fear and greed index is still sitting at 65, which is greed. So although it does feel like we are down and down and frustrated, we're still in a healthy bull market, and we're just experiencing a little bit of a downtrend. A little bit of housekeeping before we jump into our topics. We don't have sponsors on this podcast, but I will bring up a couple of places that I use personally. They're not sponsoring us, or they're not endorsed by us, but the places that I use to accumulate some extra Bitcoin. This one here, Free Cash. Here's my referral link here, and I'm going to put the referral link in all of our videos. I also have a couple of videos that you can go on to see how it kind of works. But they're doing a promotion right now that you can earn up to $12.50 for each person that you invite to Free Cash. And the second one here, again, I always advocate for self-custody, but if you're going to use an exchange, especially living in New York State, Gemini is the best exchange, in my opinion, to use. And Gemini is doing a giveaway right now for anyone who's never used the platform before, that downloads the platform and deposits in the first 30 days $100 and buys some crypto, preferably Bitcoin, will get $75 of their chosen crypto, which hopefully is Bitcoin, in that first 30 days as well. So put $100 in to Bitcoin, get $175 worth of Bitcoin before you get to price appreciation. And I'll also have this link in the description of this video as well. So let's jump right into our very first story. It looks like the marriage made in heaven between Elon Musk and Donald Trump is ending. Looks like Elon realized what we've been saying on this podcast for a couple of months, that in a debt-based economy, you are not going to create some Doge system that's going to reduce, let alone eliminate, the national debt. And Elon figured that out and bailed. And he, on the way out, is throwing some shots at conservatives, throwing some shots at Republicans in Congress, and throwing some shots at Trump. This post here says a flood of Fox News commentators are siding with Elon's call for strict budget cuts and slamming Trump for failing to deliver. Many accuse Trump of governing like a Democrat when it comes to debt, blasting his record as fiscally reckless and warning that Americans can't afford welfare from the world. Elon's critique of the bipartisan budget bill seems to have tapped into deep conservative frustration, and it's not aimed at Biden. And it looks like we got a angry Musk who was trying through Doge, through those efforts, to cut fraud, waste, and abuse, and find ways to cut down the debt. I believe he got as high as 150 billion. And if you remember, we talked about on this podcast about a month ago that Trump turned around and used the 150 billion plus sum to add to the federal spending for defense. So essentially wiping away everything that we saved and just diverting it to another area, and essentially not saving anything and continuing to spend. And that's what you do in a debt-based economy. So no surprise here to anybody here that watches this podcast, but apparently very surprising to conservatives who really thought that Trump was really going to try to reduce the national debt. And we know that that's not the case. Good follow on X here. Simon Dixon. If you're not following him, you should be. He's excellent on spaces, Bitcoin spaces, macro spaces, political spaces. He tweeted here, as I've always said, Trump and Elizabeth Warren both serve the same banking lobby, holding over $10 trillion in U.S. debt. That lobby has no interest in ever seeing the debt repaid. The dollar is debt. It can't be repaid. It's a debt-based Ponzi scheme. Trump is proposing to abolish the debt ceiling altogether. Quote, I agree with Senator Warren, Trump says. The debt limit should be entirely scrapped, end quote. If successful, this would remove Congress's obligation to vote on raising the debt ceiling, paving the way for unlimited borrowing without accountability. The ultimate gift to both banks and BRICS. Great for a stablecoin issuer looking to move fast and break things like Trump too. And here's the Truth Social, whatever you call it, tweet, I don't know what you call it on Truth Social, but post by Trump earlier today. I am very pleased to announce that after all these years, I agree with Senator Warren on something. The debt limit should be entirely scrapped to prevent an economic catastrophe. It is too devastating to be put in the hands of political people that may want to use it despite the horrendous effect it could have on our country and indirectly even the world. As to Senator Warren's second statement on the $4 trillion, I like that also. But it would have to be done over a period of time, as short as possible. Let's get together, Republican and Democrats, and do this. It's never a good thing if you're agreeing with Senator Warren on anything, especially if it's something fiscal. It comes as absolutely no surprise to me or anybody who's watched this podcast for the last couple of years to see Donald Trump talking this way, tweeting this way, and thinking this way fiscally, because I've said from the jump, Donald Trump is not a fiscal conservative. Donald Trump is not going to govern in a fiscally conservative way. Donald Trump is not a savior in regards to anything in debt spending, in anything that has to do with reducing debt spending. So I don't know why this is surprising to anyone, and people are talking on their talking head news shows like they're surprised that this is happening, and they're holding their hands like Kevin in Home Alone. Like, I can't believe this. This is crazy. I don't understand. I'm perplexed at the pundit reaction to this, because nothing in Donald Trump's history said he was going to govern that way. So this is not surprising. If you remember, like I said, again, going out the door in 2020, he was advocating for higher and larger stimulus checks. And we do all this blaming on Joe Biden, on him causing inflation and all this stuff that the conservatives would say, which I agree. Like I say, he exacerbated that problem. But the creator and the originator of that problem was Donald J. Trump. He's the one that signed off in the original stimulus, and he started all of that. So Trump and Biden combined are why we're in this mess. So it's no surprise that Trump 2.0 is doing the same fiscal irresponsible spending that Trump 1.0 did, which is what every president does, because we have a debt-based economy, which is why Bitcoin was created, which is why Bitcoin goes up forever. I'm sorry that I'm coming off as just like very just matter-of-factly, but this is the shit that we talk about on this podcast, and this is the stuff that Bitcoiners talk about, of why Bitcoin's going up perpetually, because the money printers are going to print perpetually. They're going to inflate away your buying power. They're going to inflate away your wages. This is what happens. Without Bitcoin, everyone is effed. So, I mean, Rich, this is a little bit of a political thing. This is, maybe something that you could kind of speak to in regards to what's going on fiscally with our beautiful government.
Who would have ever? The first line of that post is, if you're a Trump person and you aren't majorly concerned that he's agreeing on principle on anything with Elizabeth Warren, and you think he's going to do things that are going to help you and the economy of your country, you if you still believe it, then you're just, there's no way you're ever going to get it unless he comes and robs from you personally, out of your, like he comes and tells you, I'm not giving you personally Social Security, whatever else, this crap that he keeps wasting money on. It's very frustrating. And the one who really makes me mad is like was House Chairman Johnson. They asked him, he's like, no, we're not adding to the deficit. He lied. This is supposedly, this man claims to be a Christian, talks about this stuff all the time, and he's there lying to everybody. Like,
Well, he's
come
a
on,
politician. It's part of the
I
job description.
understand, but like, it's one thing to say, well, come out and say, the way this country runs, we do have to just keep, the deficit. Deficit is part of how our country runs. He could say that, and people probably would listen and believe him. Like, at least be relatively straightforward. Don't pretend. And there's enough. I do like Senator Paul. I've always liked Senator Paul. Because I think he
gets it. He understands the
and
Fed.
He's trying.
He understands the danger of
yes,
the Fed.
He doesn't care. He doesn't see himself being president of the United States. He sees this as his job. And I like that he came out and now, because he's strong and he's intelligent, there's people that are listening to him, and there's some other senators, because there's some other stupid stuff in that bill too that have alarmed a lot of people. That it's not just the deficit spending and getting rid of the ceiling. There's some other things in that bill too that even some senators are like, and some congressmen came out and said, yeah, we should probably take that out. Some congressional people said to the Senate, yeah, we missed that. You should probably take that out. The Republicans. So it's not even like Democrats who yell about everything. It's a hot mess.
Cults are dangerous for many different reasons, but specifically MAGA as a cult, because that's what it is dangerous. Because what the MAGA cult did and has done is transfix themselves so much laser focused on liberals and Democrats and the crazy liberal ideologies and the crazy Democrats that spout stupid things and make ridiculous like claims in regards to whatever the case may be in policy X or policy Y, that they didn't really take a look at what their guy did before fiscally and what he was saying, because this isn't new. This isn't like, oh, I just like was guessing that this was all going to happen. Like the seeds were out there. They were already planted. You could see it, that how he was going to govern and what was going to happen.
Well, just look at his first term. Like, it wasn't like the deficit went down under his first. And again, prior to COVID, I understood there was some stuff you had to spend during the COVID time. But prior to that, the deficit didn't go down. We didn't cut the budget the first time. So people get confused. They're like, because the Democrats will come and say, well, Clinton cut the deficit. No, Clinton cut deficit spending. Like, that's the one time, because that was the one time there was a surplus in the last 30 years. But they didn't. Yeah,
the last president to have an inkling of fiscal conservatism was Clinton.
Yeah. And then they blew that money right away.
Yeah.
It's like they won money at the bank and then they gave it all away.
But he at least made attempts.
But I mean, go look at, people don't believe me when I say that. I'm like, go look at, like, well, but the tax cuts, I said, they lied. They said all this extra money was going to come in with the new tax code. Most of the money that's coming in is because you and I we're paying more in our federal taxes now than ever before, because the main thing they got rid of was the ability to itemize your deductions. That was under Trump, and I look at my taxes, how they've gone up every year, because I can't itemize my deductions anymore. I don't get any credit for my mortgage payments and my interest payments, my home equity, and all that other shit.
People get upset with me and they get confused when I say taxation is theft, and I give them the libertarian ideology of like taxes being theft. I don't believe fundamentally that taxes themselves are theft, or that the idea of taxation doesn't have a place in a society. But in a debt-based society where you are printing money at will,
right,
the idea that I have to give you money on top of what you're already printing, when you produce deficits and you fill those deficits with printed dollars, and then you come look at me who's living on a fixed whatever salary I have coming in, or anybody else, maybe not me necessarily, but other people, overwhelming majority of people living paycheck to paycheck, have to figure out how to make things work, because you're going to take 35% of my hard-earned money that I get up and give up a third of my life to. When you have a deficit, you push a button and all of a sudden money appears. Right. But then I'm expected to give up, depending on my locality, 35 or 45% of my money. That's theft. Taxation is theft when the government is irresponsibly printing money to fill their deficits. So when you look at somebody like Donald Trump coming in and doing this, it's like, why? Yes, I'm going to get pissed off, and I don't give a shit if he's a Republican, a Democrat, if you're MAGA, if you're a libtard. Like, it's all irrelevant. They're all part of the same homogeny. Democrats and Republicans are the same. Donald Trump is nothing different. That's why these MAGA morons piss me off. Like, you think you got something different. You don't. It's the same thing. He's governing just just a little flavor differently in certain areas, but they all govern the same. From Clinton to Bush to Obama to Biden to Trump, like it's all the same shit. Like I don't know what you guys out there think you're getting. Like here we are right back to square one. And if anything, you had that debacle in April with the tariff nonsense where you set markets in this unnecessary gyration. It's like, oh look, they're back.
And then you got nothing out of it. Like
absolutely nothing out of it.
He came out and he lied and he said, I'm gonna have 90 deals in 90 days. Like we're 60 days into that and there's no deals. There's not an official deal. There was something they posted that they were in negotiations about something with the UK, but there are no official deals done. There are not one deal is done. Not one.
If anything, he said China went back on their word.
Yeah.
He's already come out and said China's already gone back on their word.
It's just frustrating to me because people don't, and I'm more on the political side than the financial side, but the one thing I'll say specifically is there was a senator, and I forgot the senator's name, he's a Republican senator who was on something the other day, and he said something to the extent like, we continue to mortgage our children and our grandchildren's future with these deficits. And what I liked about that was it really chimes in with the reason why you believe in Bitcoin, because you think I've got to figure out a way to take care of the next generations. How am I going to kind of have a legacy for my children and their children? And that's why that's why, like, for me, I'm a more traditional investment guy, but I've always said, you know what, I can do a little less with my finances because I want to have the ability to take care of my kids and have money for them and maybe even like help my grandkids, if I have any someday, put some money aside for them to go to college. I want to be able to, because I know it's getting harder and harder and harder for the next generation. Like, we've talked about this, about housing. We've talked about college loans, all this shit, car payments, interest payments, inflation, everything. Salaries are not keeping up. And it's like, oh, the Trump's going to fix that. I don't know what he's fixed.
Take a look at this next article we got up here. The U.S. now has $36.21 trillion in public debt, $18.2 trillion in household debt, $12.8 trillion in mortgages, $1.64 in auto loans, $1.63 in student loans. And then obviously it's a Bitcoin post. So the Bitcoin supply stays locked at 21 million, no printing, no central banks, just code and scarcity. But to get back to what we were just talking about specifically in regards to Trump and governance, like you have a president who has all these ballooning debts, who's getting ready to pass this big, beautiful bill that when you take a look at the big, beautiful bill, it's adding to all these numbers. It's not taking anything away. All you're doing is you're just giving, and with the last article that we just said, he's agreeing with the biggest idiot that we have in government, in my opinion. I think she's the biggest piece of shit that we got in governance, Elizabeth Warren. He's agreeing with Elizabeth Warren, who's saying we should just do away with the debt ceiling, which means that we should just print ad nauseum and just inflate everything away. And it's like, if you don't have something like Bitcoin, you take the debt ceiling. Where do we go with these prices and these debts? Like when these debts go up, that means that prices are going to go up. And when prices of goods and services go up, all this shit that the MAGA people are complaining about that the Biden administration did for 4 years, like here we go again. With no pandemic to blame it on. We're just recklessly spending for what? There isn't, at least there was an excuse. Not to say that it was a good excuse. I'm not going to relitigate the pandemic and COVID, but I'm just going to say, like, there was an event. This is just, we're just going to do it.
Yeah.
Why?
Like Bush gets a little bit of pass sometimes because
9/11.
Because of 9/11.
Yeah.
And whether he was, his dad was, whatever, it happened and the country had to do some things. Some of the country wanted to do some of those things. But regardless, that affected the economy. It affected a lot of things. It affected a lot of people. So, yes, COVID, Trump, maybe his reaction could have been better, whatever. Regardless, it ended up causing problems. And that's the thing. Like, every time, and it's always this thing too. Like everybody's going to get like $5,000. We
talked about
week,
that.
All the Steeler workers are getting $5,000.
We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
$5,000. Like,
where does this money come from?
He's
asking these questions?
Now turned into Oprah. Because look under your seat.
Yeah.
There's a check for $5,000. Like that's what we've turned into.
While he's tweeting nonstop in 21, 22, 23 about how Biden's taking us over the edge fiscally, they're irresponsibly spending all your eggs. He is fixated on eggs. I don't know what this guy's got with eggs, but he just always talks about the price of eggs and all these prices of things. And it's like, here we go. He comes in And one of the first things he does something that any economist will tell you is inflationary. You're going to mess with the tariffs, which is going to cause prices of goods and services to go up right off the gate. Does that. And now you have this bill that you're passing that you even have people on your own team, and the Republicans are like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, we're supposed to be the party of like conservatism and responsible spending. And here we are just recklessly spending all this money in these bills. You have Fox News, who's a conservative news outlet, calling them out saying, hold on, pump the brakes. Like, what are you doing? And then Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk, who literally helped you get elected, was literally on the campaign trail, giving money to people to go out to vote, was on your side, was doing Doge, trying to do all this stuff, and he takes a step back and says, you know what, it's better to go shoot off rockets and go build cars than it is to try to mess with this government who has absolutely no desire to be responsible when it comes to fiscal spending. And here we are right back in the same spot. And MAGA screamed at me for a couple of years, and then right when he was elected, that here we go, we're taking the country back, and we're doing all. It's like, what have we taken back? What you can't be a girl and playing a guy's sport now? Like, that's our win? Or you can't, like, I got to pick the bathroom that I go. Like, what do we?
Be honest, all of those things. These are all things that he knows. His people know it's all about distraction. Like
100%. Smoke and mirrors.
Like, for example,
which is what snake oil salesmen do.
I want to go back to the political side of some of this, but like the amount of people that don't realize what happened with Ukraine and the drones and stuff and the attacks that they did over the weekend, and Trump did not post anything about it. Like, he barely said anything for 15 hours. Like, I follow his stuff on, and see what he's posting. He ignored it. The only thing he talked about was Kid Rock's new restaurant. That was one of the things he posted about. I'm like, I want him to be more serious about these things. Like this stuff that he did. Like, it's frustrating for me because the tariff stuff led to fiscal irresponsible, like a lot of problems with Wall Street and all the fluctuality of stocks in bonds. That hurt a lot of people. A lot of people that do investment. That hurt a lot of little people. Like, big people too, but a lot of little people who are depending on when they can retire and all that stuff with the investments they have. They lost a lot of equity. They got screwed because of this. Well, I'm going to have a tariff on
think
this,
about,
and I'm going to tariff Mattel.
Think about if you're on the inside of the Trump administration, and we talked about this a little bit before, but it's worth talking about again. Think about being inside of the Trump administration, knowing that you're about to do all this stuff and having exposure to the market. At the very least, you can sell off all your stuff, or you can short the market and then ride it all the way back up, like from the depths of the tariff debacle of April all the way up to, I think it was the fourth or fifth highest return that we had in the S&P 500 in a 1 month period in history, because we went from almost an all-time high to like dropping 20%, bouncing all the way back, and here we are like flirting with all-time highs again in the markets. And it's just like, it's just wild. Like, and it's just like business as usual. Like, what are we doing? What is this administration really doing to address fiscal? You can say whatever, like, even if you're pro tariffs and you're like, we need to do whatever, that's a different conversation. I want to put that aside for a second, because tariffs, and then now you're doing a bill that's going to go through Congress, and something congressional is going to last past your presidency, right? Something you do over here executive wise, the next president can come in and change. When something goes through Congress, it takes another act of Congress to change that. So he's trying to pass this bill through Congress that's just going to spend more. Where's the saving? Where is the responsibility? Where is the budget cutting? Where's the deficit spent? Like, we're at 36.21 trillion. We're going to be at 40. Like, I read something the other day. We're putting every 90 days, $1 trillion onto the national debt. Yeah. Like, we're going to be at 40 by the end of by the end of his. Yeah. We'll be way past 40 by the end of his term.
I saw a chart on what they,
because it's just going to compound and accelerate.
And the other thing that's happened is like our debt rating is low. Like,
got downgraded.
We talked about that.
It got downgraded.
The first time in history that ever went down. And our GDP is not positive right now. It's not. The GDP was on minus 0.1. The GDP never is below zero. Like, we always a positive GDP, and that is because of every economist that I saw that's posted about it. is, either they said, well, that's not accurate, or it's because manufacturing is slowing things down because they're not sure what's going on with tariffs. They don't know if they can get the materials from China or India or wherever they get their crap from. Like, they just don't know if it's coming. And they don't, so they're kind of pausing hiring, they're pausing production on things, or they're raising prices, they're stockpiling equipment because they don't know if they're almost like kind of, well, we'll only buy 50 of those because we don't know if we're even going to sell them or buy any more. So it's like, it's a weird thing right now. Like I have a bid that I have in for a project, and the speakers went up by 20%. They're 20% higher than they were in September. That is going to affect us because, and the person that we're trying to sell this equipment to, and it is because this company is either trying to stockpile money or do something because they don't know what their business model is going to look like over the next 2 years because there's so much uncertainty.
Take a look at this tweet here. This is from almost 1 year ago. And this goes back to the ethos of why we Bitcoin. Imagine working 9 to 5 for 50 years. Then the Fed prints 40% of the total money supply and inflates away 20 years of your work.
Wow.
I want you to think about something. This is to the audience. Let's say that for the rest of time, let's say we just lock this number in for the rest of the time. It's going to be higher, but let's just pretend it's not. Let's say that for the next 50 years, you're going to have 3.75% of inflation. Okay? Let's just pretend. That means basically every 20 years, your income needs to double to maintain the standard of living that you have today. Not get better, get more, just to maintain whatever like the vehicle you're driving, the house that you're living in, the food that you're purchasing, the vacations that you take. That standard of living that you have today, your income must double in every 20 years to maintain that. So if you make $100,000 today, in 20 years, you got to make $200,000. Right. That means in 40 years, you got to make $400,000, which means in 50 years, you got to be around $500,000 to maintain the living that you have today. If you're not putting anything away for retirement, how are you going to survive in 50 years? Or if you're putting minimal away for retirement, how are you going to survive in 50 years because think about it. If you retire by then, you might be retired for like today, you might be retired for like 20 or 30. By then it might be 30 or 40. So you need $500,000 every year for 30 or 40 years to maintain. And you can say, okay, maybe you don't need exactly that because your house is paid off and all that stuff. But let's just say you need 300,000 or 400,000 and you got to get 30 or 40 years out of that.
Right.
In that present or in that future time frame. And believe me, and at my day job, I meet with a lot of people who are not putting nearly enough money away. And then that time creeps up on them. Right. And even let's just do the guy that in my demographic that's retiring in 20 years, that's making 150,000 right now, that's got to make 300,000 in 20 years, right, that hasn't started saving yet. Right. And then they're gonna be retired for 30 years at $300,000. 10 years is $3 million. So 30 years is $9 million. You have a $9 million problem you haven't addressed yet.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that, like, I would always say to the new teachers when I was still working, I would say to them, like, and I'm not saying that a 403B is the greatest thing in the world, but I'm like, you need to start doing something. That's the easiest one because it's here and it's it's good. It's blah, blah, blah. I said, but at least I'll wait a couple years. I'm like, you're going to wait a couple years and then you're going to get married or you're going to have kids. You're going to buy a house and all of a sudden you're not going to have the money. Learn to live without some of that money now.
Later turns into never.
I have a buddy that works in banking, so he doesn't get a pension. I've mentioned him before, and he has a target. He's a very smart guy, one of the smartest people I know. And he has a target date. He's done his math. He knows how much money he needed to save so he can have the life he wanted so he can retire at 55. Last time I went out for a beer with him, this was just 3 weeks ago, he said, I was thinking about leaving at 55. I think I'm staying till 58. So now he's like already doing new math to just for the fact that he needs 3 years of new income, of new money to put into his investments or whatever he does. I don't know exactly what he does to stockpile money because his numbers now, he has to adjust his projections of what he wanted to do. And he has a wife that will get a pension.
The slim majority he's in, the extreme slim majority. Most people don't do that. They're not doing it. And here's the thing too, like I sympathize and agree with the people that say and think that the system is rigged. It is. 100% is rigged. 100% it's rigged. But the problem is many people lean into it and never do anything to try to do something about it. They just complain and just accept defeat, and then they get to that end stage and they've done no planning or no adjusting, and then at that point it's no longer the system's fault, it's no longer the government, it's your fault because you didn't do anything.
Right.
If you know it's rigged, against you, then you have to take action and do something to tip the scales in your favor. Otherwise, you got to stop blaming the system and start looking in the mirror and blaming yourself.
And that's the frustration with politicians. I mean, politicians have gotten worse in recent years in my mind, because I feel like, I don't know, I mean, the politicians made money. Don't get me wrong. They've always did well. But I feel like politicians in recent years are making a shitload more money, and their value, what they're worth, is so much more nowadays than they were, say, even 20, 25 years ago. So I feel like they're selling us out even more nowadays than they did even 20, 25 years ago.
For sure.
And I think we're just getting to a point where there is so much there are so many people that have influence over them that they just don't really care about their constituency anymore. Like that one woman said something about, well, we're all going to die one day. Senator, and she got attacked in a press conference, and she didn't like, or one of her town halls, and she got so frustrated and she got so rattled, and then she doubled down on it the next day. And it was like you talk to your folks like they owe you something. Like, no, you owe them. You owe them. Just do your best to, even if you truly believe that stuff, great. Like if you're a true believer that this is going to work and this is going to cut the deficit, or this is going to that, or this is going to that, great. But I just don't think that they do. I think they know what they're doing and they just don't care. And they're mortgaging our, like I said, our grandchildren.
Well, they get these bills, and these bills are like hundreds or thousands of pages long, and then they have to vote on them like the same day. It's like they don't take the time to read it. They don't really know what's in it. So much of this stuff gets passed, and even if people in Congress, and I believe that there's probably some, are well-intentioned and want to do the right thing, they don't have an ability to do it because they can't. Number one, they can't read to see everything that's in it, or number two, they're just drowned out by all the voices of the people that are bought and paid for, and their votes just becomes irrelevant.
I think once they get there, they just, anytime I've ever seen anybody, I don't care if it's local, not everybody, I should rephrase that, but most people I see that end up in politics, after they're in for a little while, they kind of like lose track of why they originally, whether it was their city council or whatever it is, they tend to lose focus. And they're never the same. It's not everybody, of course, but a lot of them seem to be not the same people that first time you put their sign up on their lawn or they sign their petition. And I don't know if it's just because once they're into the system, they love the, whatever it is, they get invited to dinners and whatever it is, or if they're at the higher level where they're getting money from big fancy corporations and it starts to impress themselves.
I don't think they can survive. I think the longer they stay in, that they realize if they like it, I mean, you have to, on some level, you have to like it to stay, right? You have to like something about it, whether it's the perks, whether it's the power, whether it's the money, whatever it is, like you have to like something about it. And I think when they find whatever that thing is, they do whatever it takes to stay.
Right.
Because I think, especially the higher you get, whether it be president, whether it be Congress, whether it be, cabinet seats, whatever the case may be, like you have to, there has to be some level of like narcissism and just like hungry for power, because good people can't stay in those jobs. Like good human beings realize this is too dark and too polluted and too dirty for me to keep doing this. And as much as I want to elect and do change, it's not possible. I don't have the power to do it. And there's too many other people that will block me from doing it. And I'd much rather spend time with my family than be dragged through political. I mean, cause like that, especially the higher you get, like you're just dragged through the media. Like, you're just, you have to have such a thick skin, and there has to be, like, for everybody, like, you just think about it, like there has to be some benefit And it ends up, I think, having to be more than just, I want to do good. Like if I'm getting blasted and dragged through the media, and every time I turn the TV on, somebody's talking crap about me, or, whatever, like, there's got to be something on the other side of this that's making it worth me continuing to get up every day and to go through that. And I think that's what you see. No matter how good these people start out, like, they get infected. And then they get infected, and at some point it's got to outweigh the dragging that they take. I mean, I can't imagine, as much as I despise Elizabeth Warren, like, she gets dragged. AOC gets dragged, like, rightfully so in some respects. But if you take yourself out of it for a second of how you feel about what they believe in, and you just look at the fact that they're a human being with a family, with a mom, with possibly like a spouse or kids, and they got to see that. Like,
my frustration
that's
with
awful.
that is that it's like the attacks that come through social media and all this stuff that are coming are never about policy. They're always about, well, she was just a bartender, or he was a drunk, or this is that, and all that stuff. And it's like, you know what? Challenge the people talk about, like, again, like, talk about why you don't like the policy. Like, what, and be honest and straightforward. And that's I'll mention again, Senator Paul. Like, I don't agree with all his policies, but I think he wants to be a financial hawk, or whatever they call the term, to say, like, we gotta get this shit under control. And if you remember, I mean, most people probably that are younger don't remember the Tea Party. That's what the Tea Party was supposed to be like. And a lot of people didn't like it, but they were really trying to get into government, to try to change government, to make it more fiscally responsible. That was the big part of the Tea Party. Hence, throwing the tea into the harbor. That was where the name came from. Most of them didn't stay very long.
And that was over 2%.
Yeah, right.
Think about how silly that is.
Right. I seen that.
That was over 2%. And here we are living in New York State getting raped for like 45.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny when you think that we're fighting over that if they would have just not.
Disgusting.
There's been a lot of funny memes about that. If the UK would have just gotten rid of the 2% tax, maybe we'd still be part of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean,
because there really was, like, I mean, obviously there were other things, but it was like no taxation representation and all that stuff. If people know history, dude, it's just kind of funny. Like, maybe if like King George had just said, we don't need the tax yet. We don't need to tax the tea. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of wild.
It might still have that English accent.
It might, Yeah. All right, you've
got some other stuff you wanted to get to.
Yeah, there's a video here that I want to play. There's a new law that got passed in California this week. Play this clip real quick, and we'll kind of talk about what it means or what happened.
By item 186, AB 1052 by Assemblymember Valencia. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1052 by Assemblymember Valencia, an act related to digital assets.
Assemblymember Valencia, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, muy buenas tardes, members. AB 1052 will establish a legal framework to legitimize digital assets, also known as cryptocurrency and blockchain, and unclaimed property law. California must protect consumer assets and embrace the legal recognition of digital assets, crypto, and blockchain as we continue to modernize our economy and the systems in our society. With that, I respectfully ask for a yes vote.
Thank you, Assemblymember Valencia. All debate having ceased, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 69, no 0. The measure passes.
So as you can see, that measure passed, ironically enough, 69-0. Basically, what that says, they passed a bill to seize Bitcoin left on exchanges. After 3 years of inactivity, assets can be taken by the state under the unclaimed property laws. The bill now heads to the Senate. Doing a little bit more deep diving, and then also, like, one of the comments here kind of says, California's AB 1052 does not mean the government will seize your Bitcoin. It applies unclaimed property rules to inactive exchange accounts, requiring assets to be held, not sold by the state. This has been getting a lot of chatter back and forth on both sides. People that are Bitcoiners are upset, and it's just another thing for us to say, not your keys, not your coins. Don't put your coins on an exchange. However, and initially I saw it and I'm like, here we go, like California doing California things. But looking into it a little bit more, it makes sense. The fact that they do this in every other financial area. I mean, if you have assets in any financial institution that's inactive, the state seizes them, and then they have a website that you can go on to reclaim those assets. So I think this is just kind of modernizing it for digital assets, and they're adding digital assets into something that already exists for other financial products. It was kind of like the initial feedback was that California is just seizing Bitcoin off of exchanges, but it's not really the case. It's basically, if it's been unclaimed for 3 years, California now has the opportunity to put it in their unclaimed assets fund.
My assumption would be if someone's claim, if it's been not touched in 3 years, either the person passed away, right?
Yeah, potentially,
or they lost their code or something, right?
No, not on an exchange, because there's no keys. The website would have the keys.
So what would be reasons that people, like, besides they died?
Incarceration.
Okay.
Could be incarcerated. They could just forget. I mean, think about this. Like, people have 401ks that end up going to, like, people forget about, or people have money in bank accounts. And again, this is probably going to be more along the lines of like the bank account thing, where people might have like $5 in a bank account they closed and they forgot to get the $5, and that goes in there. Right. So I doubt there's going to be many instances where somebody's got like 10 Bitcoin and they just leave it idle for 10. You know what I mean? I don't think you're going to see a lot of that. It's probably going to be a lot of dust that you're going to see that people left on exchanges, or, circumstances where maybe somebody passed away or got incarcerated, or I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. And I don't think it's necessarily California making up. As much as I disagree with many of the things California does, I don't think this is a huge, as big of a story as people made it out to be. Pammy G, boarding a plane. Am I reading it? Boarding a plane, excellent podcast. Yeah. We'll watch it later. Thanks, Pam. Have a safe flight.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, next story. This goes into some of the things that we were just talking about earlier. Do you think United States dollar has more or less purchasing power in 20 years? Do you think nations have more or less debt in 20 years? Do you think money will be more or less digital in 20 years? Do you believe money tends to converge to a single medium? May want to get some Bitcoin in case it catches on. I like that last little tidbit of may want to get some Bitcoin in case it catches on, because that's from the early days of Bitcoin. The correspondence of Satoshi and Hal Finney. I believe it was Hal that said might want to get some in case this thing catches on, back when it was like not even worth anything. And Hal Finney was talking about an environment of where Bitcoin could one day be worth 10 million a coin, back when it was worth like less than a penny. It's pretty wild. But yeah, like the crux of this is basically like we have a sample size now. We have an enormous sample size of our government. I mean, do you think we're going to have the dollar's going to have more or less purchasing power in 20 years? Go back to 1913, the creation of the Fed. You look at the dollar's buying power, there's that chart where it's like lost 98% of its buying power. So it's probably going to continue to trend in that same direction, right? Our nation's going to have more or less debt in 20 years. Look at ours, the biggest nation in the world, where our debt just keeps ballooning. We're at 36.21 trillion. Is that going to go down? We've just talked about the fact that we have an administration that has no intentions of bringing it down. So if we're not going down, other countries aren't going down. How do things look in 20 years? Do you think money will be more or less digital in 20 years? Something like 97% of our transactions today are digital. There's only, of all the money that's out there, only like 3% of it is cash. The rest is all digital. It's digital dollars on a screen. So are we going to trend more in the direction of going back 97% or going to the full 100%? So here we are with this digital asset of Bitcoin that holds value, that's outpacing the buying power of the dollar, that's outpacing indexes like the S&P 500, that's outpacing gold over 10-year spans. It's the best performing asset the last decade. Might want to get some in case it catches on. Not that it hasn't already. You know what I mean? Like it's
the internet. That internet might catch on.
That internet thing
should have invested more in the internet.
That internet thing might catch on, huh?
It might be with us to stay.
Yeah. So, it's always like fascinating to a Bitcoiner like me that's been in this thing for 10 years, 11 years at this point plus, to just have people so skeptical and feel like, you know, the funniest one is like Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. And it's like, that one just gets the biggest eye roll, because it's like, you're using the word Ponzi scheme. And if you really dive deep into the Ponzi scheme fundamentals and you start to study the dollar, like you'll be like, oh, that's the Ponzi scheme. Right. Oh, you mean that they pay for things, they have to print money to pay for the things that they paid for, and they just keep doing that over and over again?
I love the fact that people talk about a Ponzi scheme and they don't even know what a Ponzi scheme is. Like, they don't even know the origin of what Ponzi scheme is. Like, so I find that, you know, I always like it was like, I remember in the 80s they were pyramid schemes. Like,
yeah, MLMs, yeah,
that
multi-level
was a big
marketing
thing. I remember my aunt, she fell for all these schemes. Like, she always fell for them. You know, those were like, they were timeshares. A lot of them were timeshares back in the day. Where you buy this timeshare and then sell the timeshare, and then you get a bigger timeshare.
Late night commercial at 4 o'clock in the morning.
And she, you know, and all of a sudden she was shocked, you know, and everybody, like, what I do, it's funny because I do follow you on social media, and I do see more and more people that have known you for a lot of years that will say things like, Don, you've been talking about this shit for like 12 years or whatever it is, and man, you were right. Like, you are getting a lot more people that were like, oh, there's Bitcoin Maxi guy. Like, and now they're like, oh, maybe I should have been listening to Don all this time.
And the frustrating part is that they feel like it's too late. Like, that's the part that's frustrating, that if there's any message that us Bitcoiners are trying to get out, and it's like, and I understand, like, if we're talking about a Ponzi scheme, I understand the connection that people make. Because when you say that, right, when I'm buying and I'm getting Bitcoin at hundreds of dollars, and here we are at over 100,000, and it's like, well, yeah, you want people to buy in so you can sell. That's the Ponzi scheme. Money comes in, so the you know what I mean. That's the concept of a Ponzi scheme. It's like, so I understand the correlation that people have when they say that and think that. But the thing with this asset is, like, we don't sell. We didn't sell at 1,000. We didn't sell. You know what I mean? Like, we've been holding. The majority of us have been holding on this game for this long because we know the fundamentals. We know why it was created. You know what it's here to replace. I got on a Spaces on Saturday, a Bitcoin Army Spaces. If you're on X and you're a Bitcoiner and you're not in the Bitcoin Army, shout out to the Bitcoin Army. You should be in the Bitcoin Army. I got on a Bitcoin Army Spaces on Saturday, I think was the space. Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember which day it was. A lot of times I just sit and kind of listen to the spaces. I don't try to get involved too much because, and I said this on the spaces, I literally said this word for word. I don't identify with the modern Bitcoiner. I feel like I'm that, like, get off your lawn Bitcoiner now, because this new, like, post-COVID Bitcoiner thinks much differently than I think. And I think the Bitcoiners that have really been around for a long time, because everybody's like number go up now, and everybody's like fanboying BlackRock and the treasuries and all that stuff. And for those of us that were holding at, you know, $500 a coin or $1,000 a coin or even $10,000 a coin, like, we got here because like, for me, sure, the beginning part was number go up, and I shared that on the stage. Like, for a guy like me, middle class, like, I didn't have a chance in the traditional system. Like, without Bitcoin, I was effed. I was just done. Like, social work, teaching for 20 years. I made a modest salary. I've never made I've said this before. Like, I've never made 6 figures in a year. Like, that's still yet to happen in my working lifetime. But I accumulated Bitcoin early, and I have a very respectable portfolio of Bitcoin because I got in so early, because I recognized the system that I was in that was so against me, and Bitcoin was my opt-out to that. So for me, to really click, and I even said this, like, I got into Bitcoin December 2013. It didn't really click for me until like 5 or 6 years later, when I took the time. And again, back then, much different than today, to find the information was much harder than it is now. Like, you can go on Bitcoin X and find anything and everything you want, and basically learn everything almost in like a week, basically, and learn as much that I learned in 5 or 6 years. But when I really started to study the traditional system of finance, I knew it was rigged against me, but I didn't know how, and I didn't know why. And when I went back and figured out the why and learned the old system, then it really clicked for me with Bitcoin. And when I got on that stage on this weekend and talked to the Bitcoin Army contingent, and I said, you know, as we're orange pilling people, you need to remember, like, we get so caught up in, like, talking about how great Bitcoin is and all the things that Bitcoin does, the scarcity, the 21 million, all that. It's like, yeah, that stuff is great, and it's a great, like, teaching and selling point for Bitcoin. But do not forget that if you do not teach people why and how the system that they're in now is so effed up, it's never going to make sense for them with Bitcoin. You have to know why you're in Bitcoin to be in Bitcoin. Otherwise, you end up being the number go up guy. Everybody buys for 100 and they're looking to sell at 2, or they're buying at 150 and they're looking to sell at 250. And it's like, all that is an S&P index, or all that is real estate. Like, that's the traditional system. And that's why when I fight so hard against these shitcoiners, these Ethereum guys and Solana guys and XRP guys, like, that's the model. That's the ideology. I want to buy at $2 and sell at $4. I want to buy at 2,500 and sell at 5,000. Like, that's what you do in a traditional system. Like, that's the traditional mindset. And all those tokens were created to copy Bitcoin, to feed off that number go up mindset. And that's the threat. And I talked about it this weekend as well. Like, the biggest threat to Bitcoin, 2 things. Satoshi coming back, very small threat. And the fact that these altcoins and these crypto coins are a threat to Bitcoin, because the altcoiners and the crypto guys that come in and say, oh, the Bitcoin maxis are they're so bad for the space and we all need to like hold hands, and you got Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson at the Bitcoin conference, shaking hands and kissing babies and trying to get, it's like, no, man, like, those guys are a threat because they're fiat maxis. If you're a fiat maxi, you don't get Bitcoin. You're in Bitcoin for the fiat number. And yeah, we all fanboy the Bitcoin number. We want the number to go up and it's cool to talk about. But like, I was here at 16K in 2022 and I'm here at 100K. My stack is bigger at 100K than it was at 16. I did a 5X in a 2.5 year span. And I have more Bitcoin than I had at 16K at 100K. So it's not the number go up for me. It's cool. It makes my portfolio look bigger and it shows that I'm doing the right thing. But like, that's the fiat maxi mindset. And that's why it's beautiful, honestly, for me to see right now what's going on in the altcoin space, because altcoiners are absolutely losing their mind now. Like, when is this cycle going to start for us? When are we going to like sell our bags? And it's like, it's like, you could have all along just been adding to your Bitcoin stack. Instead, you're sitting in Solana, or you're sitting in Ethereum, or you're sitting in Fartcoin, or whatever coin that you're sitting in that is just losing value against Bitcoin. And yeah, you're going to have your little small time frame jump where, your XRP did go from like 30 cents to $3 at one point. Sure, that happened during this cycle. But if you're an XRP maxi from 2018, the price of XRP right now is the same price it was in May of 2018. That's not a store of value. Ethereum is sitting at prices that it was at 5 years ago. That's not a store of value. Solana is much less than it was last cycle at its peak. That's not a store of value. Bitcoin is the only asset right now that's sitting above, even sitting at this choppy trading range, higher than it was last cycle. So to bring that rant and tie a bow on it and kind of land the plane, the point I'm trying to make is, like, you really fundamentally, if anybody gets anything out of watching podcasts like this or other podcasts, please, you yourself as a Bitcoiner, if you haven't already, and it hasn't totally clicked for you, take the time to understand the current traditional finance system. If you have, and you are a Bitcoin maxi, and you're trying to figure out ways to orange pill your family or your friends or just any random people, don't start with Bitcoin. Even if they want to, like, their fiat mindset and their inclination is going to be to talk about Bitcoin and how much they can make in Bitcoin, push that to the side and start with a conversation about the traditional system of finance, the debt-based U.S. economy, the fact that we got off the dollar in 1971, what the printing of all those dollars meant in 2008, and then what meant in 2020, and what it means to your retirement plans, what it means to trying to outpace inflation, buying power. All those conversations are what you want to have before you even have that big conversation about Bitcoin. Start there. Get the fundamental understanding of all that, because then the why presents itself. And when the why presents itself and somebody gets curious about how to fix all of that, then Bitcoin presents as the solution to the problem you've identified. That's my opinion. I think that's lacking, unfortunately, in our Bitcoin space today. I get it, because Bitcoin's trading over 100K and people are excited about that. And, you know, we do live in a fiat based, you know, my mortgage is a fiat based mortgage. My car payment's a fiat based car payment. God forbid I ever pay either of those two things with sats. So I get it. Like you're trying to find ways to mine fiat to pay for your stuff. But when you're trying to quote unquote orange pill people, you have to start with the why. Satoshi systematically, ingeniously created this thing at the culmination of the great financial crisis. He, she, or they, whatever that entity is, saw the Pandora's box that got opened by stopping the economy globally from going off a cliff and the money printers going on. They foreshadowed what was going to happen. In some respects, foreshadowed 2020 and the COVID spending and the stimulus there. And they said there has to be something that we can do to stop the cannibalism of the United States dollar that's going to occur, that's going to eradicate the buying power of future generations. And people at one point in time, if Bitcoin doesn't get created, are going to sit there and say, how the hell do we do this? How do we make it? And Bitcoin was the ethos of that. So again, I implore you, if you're watching this podcast and you're curious about Bitcoin and you want to learn about why Bitcoin goes up, why Bitcoin exists, why BlackRock or, you know, companies put on their balance sheet, it's not necessarily just because of number go up. The smartest people in the room know what's going on in the traditional finance system, and they're realizing that Bitcoin is that alternative, and they're using that as their solution to hedge against that US dollar failure, because the US dollar is going to fail. It's not if, it's when with the United States dollar. Couple last stories to wrap everything up here. Bitcoin conference. We didn't talk a lot about it last week because we had Jason on. Again, if you watched our podcast last week, the benefit is this Sunday between 1 and 7. If you're locally here in Niagara Falls, please attend. Send some money Gianna's way. The Bitcoin conference 2025. Yep, the code is on the screen. Got to go over here. There it is.
That's the information about.
Yep,
it,
the flyer.
Here's the QR code. So
Yep.
You can still scan that. It'll take you to the information. And if you can't attend, you can still make a donation. I did make
Yep.
a donation through the GoFundMe. So if you're still interested, you can still do that.
Yep. You can also private message me. I did have somebody private message me last week about Zelle because they didn't have Venmo, and they Zelled some money straight to Jason for their daughter as well, his daughter as well. Big takeaways from Bitcoin Conference 2025. Bitcoin block space will outvalue most altcoins. The main conference is packed with normies. Side events are where the real alpha is. Gamble in moderation, and for God's sake, learn more than just blackjack. Bitcoin isn't just mainstream, it's industry now. Ordinals, Tap, Runes, BRC20. Still grassroots. BTC as an industry is still extremely early. And then this person put some picks up. I didn't get an opportunity last week, unfortunately, to do this, and it's already past it, but I was able to get a free ticket. There was a 24-hour window, I think, last week where you could get a free pass to Bitcoin 2026, and typically they're about between $400 and $500 a ticket. And I've never attended the conference because it's so hard for me to pay in sats for anything, and I never wanted to give up Bitcoin to attend a conference, so I just never got around to doing it. Even though it was in Vegas this year, which is one of my favorite places to be. But next year in 2026, I can go for free, so I'll be there. I will be at Bitcoin 2026 in Vegas. I got my free pass last week. I don't know what the general admission pass. They're probably going to be between $400 and $500 again, I would assume. Pro Pass will be $599. Well Pass will be $7,777. I may actually get this after hours pass if I can find a way to do it, just paying without paying in Bitcoin for $299. That might be pretty cool to do. But that'll be next year. And the very last thing that we're going to go over, because there has been talks of like changing protocols with Bitcoin. There's a little bit of the block size wars of 2017 talks going on. And I like this last tweet. If Rich, you can bring this up on the screen for the viewers to see. This is how I like the approach to development on the Bitcoin protocol. If you look, you can see this paperclip in 1949, and you can see its evolution in 1900, 1960, in 2025. If it's not broke, don't fix it. It worked that way in 1849, and it still works the same way in 2025. Sometimes things that are created perfectly just don't need to be upgraded and changed, and many of us kind of feel the same way about Bitcoin. And with that, this is another episode 88 of the Defion Productions podcast. Thank you for watching. All of our socials are at the bottom of the screen. Please take a moment, like this video, share it out. Follow me on X, follow me on Facebook. And as always, now more important than ever in these crazy times that we're living in, don't trust, verify. Thanks for watching. See you next week, guys. Peace.